G'day guys, this is Jay here from Journey of a Whitefeather with the kangaroos, koalas and Steve Irwin impersonations. That's the three things that Australians are known for. And I'm very honoured to have Mr. Jim Marshall from Arizona. Now, he's into human behaviour. That's how I look at it. I'm reading his profile and I have to say some of the stuff there's gone over my head. It's just amazing. But this is what we do on my channel. We talk to people who have incredible knowledge and incredible passion for what they do. And Jim, thank you so much for coming on board and having a chat with Jay, my friend.
Thanks, Jay.
Absolutely fantastic. So I just want to go straight out and say the book, and the book, and I'm gonna actually get it right because I'm hopeless with words sometimes. It's Septemics. Is that how we say it?
Septemics.
Septemics, amazing. So what I'm going to get you to do first, just introduce yourself, talk about your highlights, but mainly I want to find out human behavior because there's so much talk in the media and obviously all on social media with people getting the opportunity to chat about their experiences and also their studies. Over to you, my friend.
Okay, well, the first thing your viewers should know is that I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid the understanding of people, from which I created a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics and published it in the book Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena.
Absolutely fantastic. So that's available on Amazon right now, which is absolutely, which we'll put a link to that in the bio and also throughout the chat, mate. I'm blown away because I'll be honest with you, with the behavioral stuff that I study, which is basically just looking at understanding people on a basic human level, and we're looking at stuff with regards to how they've been brought up and looking at shadow work and all those kind of things, those influences within their life, parenthood, how they grew up, how it's influencing their life now, looking at effects of the first 7 years, to go to what you're doing as a science. And this is amazing. And as I said, this is why I picked you, because I think it links to it has that link for me, and having you now as a reference to talk about the science of human behavior. I think that's very, very important to people understand. I think people miss that a lot. Do you want to give us a little bit of a background or where you're at, or why you came up with it? What was your passion behind going towards this human behavior? I'd like to take this time to shout out our supporters at Liberty Bullion, the best gold, silver and platinum traders in Melbourne, even Australia. If you want to give them a call, their knowledge, their customer service is second to none. Back to the show.
Okay, so there's a half a dozen different subjects here that you addressed, and I hope I can remember them all. First of all, that's okay. Septemics is not a part of psychology. It's much bigger than psychology. Septemics is an entirely new subject that did not exist before I discovered it and wrote it down. Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to humans occur in a sequence of 7 levels. Literally, the word septemics means of or pertaining to 7. Septemics comprises a collection of scales or sequences, each of which breaks down various human phenomena into a hierarchy of 7 steps. There are 35 such scales, each of which is unique, and between them, they span the spectrum of human experience, by which I mean any problem, situation, dilemma, difficulty that any person has regarding people can successfully be analyzed by one or more of these scales. This is at least hundreds of years ahead of Earth society. It might be 1,000 years ahead, but I would be guessing at that. But there's nothing like it. There's nothing close to it. And the general reaction I give people who read this book is like, wow, because it blows their minds. So this is an entirely new body of data based on empirical observation. So this is qualitatively different from anything in the field of mental health. So let me tell you how I figured this out. The story really began at the age of 16 when I was accepted into engineering school. Now, of course, at the time, I thought it was going to be engineering physical things like airfoils, motors, electrons, gears. But by the time I had my bachelor's degree, it was clear to me that I wanted to engineer the human psyche because it is the area of greatest unknown and greatest mystery. And more importantly, it is the area in which we as a race are failing miserably. 95% of the problems in industrialized society are because people don't understand people, don't understand the wife, don't understand the husband, don't understand the son, don't understand the boss, et cetera, et cetera. This goes in all directions. And this book solves that problem across 35 axes. So to make a long story short, I had a long career as a human development engineer, working one-on-one with hundreds of clients of every description to bring them to higher levels of enlightenment, responsibility, ethics, and so forth, depending on what the person wanted. All of my clients improved as a result of the work we did together. But I started to notice incidentally that I could predict the outcome of the session. I never told this to anybody, but I made notes. And as the decades rolled by, it became obvious to me that the client would be at a specific level on a specific scale that I had previously observed and recorded. And as a result of our interaction, he would go to the next level up on that scale. Now, this happened thousands and thousands of times over a 40-year period. And every time it did, it verified my hypothesis because the clients knew absolutely nothing about what I was doing, how I was doing it, or what I was thinking about or recording. All they knew is they came to me with some unwanted conditional problem and asked me to help them with it, and I did. So by 1995, after doing this for many decades with lots of different people, I had about 32 scales that I had simply observed and written down. And one day I was pondering a difficult client. And I had this one scale that I absolutely knew by then was correct. I had 6 levels. And then I realized the reason I was having trouble with this client is she was at a level on this scale that I had not previously observed. In other words, it actually had a 7th level. As soon as I saw what this level was, I inserted it because it was obvious to me where to insert it. And at that moment, the scale manifested mathematically. Now, let me tell you what this means. I took 26 semesters of math and loved every minute of it. The whole point of math is you start with a formula or an equation and you coax data out of it. That's how Einstein found E equals mc squared. You use the laws of mathematics to get from what you have to something else. So when you have a body of data present itself, that is an inherently mathematical phenomenon. See, I wasn't looking for this. I was just helping my clients and making notes. So when I inserted this 7th level, it manifested mathematically. At that instant, it went from being a line, which is what a scale is, to a plane, meaning a whole body of data. So I now had this whole plane of data relative to this scale, and all of the data interlocked and intersected mathematically so that it was inarguable because it was mathematical. Okay. Now, as soon as I saw this, I could have said, whoa, I found something. whatever the hell this is, it has to be natural law because it's got mathematics embedded in it. And I wasn't even looking for that.
Right.
So then I thought, wait a minute. I wonder how many of these other scales are actually 7-level scales that had not been developed all the way. Because as I said, I wasn't developing anything. I was just helping my clients making notes. So knowing what I was looking for, I then carefully inspected all these other scales. And in a short period of time, each of them went to 7 levels. And when it did, it manifested mathematically. So I now had 32 7-level scales, all about human phenomena, all of which had mathematics embedded in them. Having gone to school for 28 years, I said to myself, this looks like a new subject, because I never saw anything like this in any of my education. So then I thought, wait a minute. I could go from helping people by the hundreds, which is what I had been doing as a human development engineer, to helping them by the millions if I put this in a book and get it out so people can have it. So I'm going to have to write a book. Let me say one more thing.
Okay.
The first draft of the book was finished in December of 95. And I immediately sent it out to colleagues of mine, all of whom had graduate degrees in a variety of subjects. And they all loved it. They had different responses, but distinctly positive responses. They got it. And that told me that this was exactly what I thought it was, which is a new subject that people would really get. This is not obscure. I've been watching people respond to this now for 30 years. Guy looks at it, he says, yeah, this makes sense. It's like, remember the first time you saw the Pythagorean theorem? When maybe you were 13 or 14, right? You looked at a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and you think about it, and you say, yeah, this makes sense. I get it. Or the first time you saw the periodic table of elements, right? You looked at it, you said, this makes sense. Hydrogen is 1, helium is 2, lithium is 3, horizontally and vertically. So when Dmitri Mendeleev created this, he had 79 elements, I believe. Now we have about 125, and we just keep adding them in because it works. In other words, it's natural law. Now, several people have said to me, what book is your book like? That's kind of an ordinary question. And I say to them, having gone to school for 28 years, I don't think there's ever been a book like this before, at least on Earth. Maybe on some other planet there is. But what I can tell you it's like is each one of these 35 scales is expressed in the book in what you could call a table or a spreadsheet. And each of those tables is comparable to the periodic table of elements. But instead of it being for matter, it's for the corresponding areas of human affairs. So I should tell you at this point the names of the 35 scales so you know exactly what subject matter is addressed in the book. Of these 35 scales, 24 of them I call individual scales. They apply to an individual. And 11 of them are group scales. They apply to a group. So these are the individual scales. The scale of basic purposes, the scale of personal influence, the scale of choice, the scale of permeation, the scale of thought, the scale of identity, the scale of evaluation, the scale of motivation, the scale of control, the scale of stopping, the scale of scholarship, the scale of literacy, the scale of human ability, the scale of memory, the scale of spiritual identity, the scale of mental deletion, the scale of aberration, the scale of physical fitness, the scale of justification, the scale of belief, the scale of equanimity, the scale of attack, the scale of conflict, and the scale of reaction. And these are the group scales, the scale of relationships, the scale of life spheres, the scale of government, the scale of civilization, the scale of survival, the scale of management, the scale of exchange, the scale of communication, the scale of allegiance, the scale of sexuality, and the scale of politics. Having watched people use this for 30 years, I can tell you any one of these scales by itself can dramatically improve the life of the reader. And let me give you a simple example of how easy this
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I mentioned the scale of motivation. One of the most important things to know about a person is motivation. Why is this person doing this? See, why is this girl talking to me? Does she want to get a date with me? Does she want me to give her money? See, what's the motivation? That's an important thing to know. That's how the police solve crimes. They look for a motive. And when they find a motive, that's the person they investigate. So you could ask yourself, what's my mother's motivation toward me? What's my father's motivation toward me? What's my boss's motivation toward me? What's my girlfriend's motivation toward me? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you could ask that question for every person you have ever known or know now. Now, by the time you did that, you would have, depending on how many people you know, you may have asked that question 200, 300, 400, 500 times, each in a different context. Now, every time you get a correct answer, you have a realization. So you say, what's my girlfriend's motivation toward me? See? And you know her. So then you look at the material. Ah, now I see what it is. That explains why she does X, Y, and Z. See, that's a realization.
Okay.
So every time you do this, you have an insight. And then you could take the same question and reverse the vector and say, what's my motive toward Fred? What's my motive toward Mary? What's my motive toward my pastor? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And do it that way another 200, 300, 400, 500 times for everybody you know or ever knew. And every time you get a correct answer, you'll have a realization. Oh, that was my motivation toward Gertrude. That's why we couldn't get along, see? So this is one scale. Now, by the time you finish this exercise, you will have had something like, depending on how many people you know, 500, 600, 700 insights. Every one of them made you a little bit smarter. So your mind now is much clearer because motive has been clarified. You know the motive of everybody around you and your motive toward them, which is something that almost nobody knows. Now, you could do this with all these scales. For example, let's say you have a girlfriend. You could take all 35 scales and you could say, where is my girlfriend on the scale of basic purposes? You find it, you have a realization. Where's my girl on the scale of personal influence? You find it, you have a realization. By the time you finish with all 35 scales, you will understand her better than she understands herself. Because this is natural law. This is inarguable. It's just like calculating. If you tell me my garden is 3 yards on this side and 4 yards on this side, and you want to pave a diagonal across it, I can tell you it's going to be 5 yards because of the Pythagorean theorem. It's always right. I don't have to measure anything. That's what this is like. But it's all about human affairs. This is an entirely new subject. And the people who are studying this, there's a whole bunch of people around the world who are studying this, they're just blown away by this. So that's where this came from. That's what it's about. And let me give you a little analogy to tell you how this works. A simple analogy.
Please.
Let's say you find out that I'm into gardening and you invite me to your house. You say, Jim, come and see my garden. Great. So I show up at Jay's house and I say, oh, Jay has hydrangeas, irises, chrysanthemums, tulips, roses, bougainvillea. Now, the reason I can analyze it that way is I know a lot about flowers. If you wanted me to, I could advise you. I could say, these need shade, these need more sun. These need less water, these need more water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Now, most people don't have that understanding about flowers or about people. So if you bring some little girl into your yard who's 5 years old, and she's going to smell and see exactly what I smell and see, but all she can say is, these smell nice and they're pretty. That's all she knows.
Okay.
Most adults are like that little girl about people. They don't know what they're looking at. You know why? Because they don't have this book. So I can tell you this guy's a chrysanthemum, this guy's a hydrangea, and this guy's a tulip. Makes a difference. Now, let me tell you something. Every tulip in the world is unique, and every rose in the world is unique. But I can always tell the difference between a tulip and a rose, and you probably can too, because you know about it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's what this is on people. So you get a depth of understanding about people that is uh, way beyond anything else going on Earth right now. So once you learn this data, you will be able to analyze people the way I analyzed those flowers in your garden. So to me, knowing all this material, people are no mystery to me. You know, I just look at them and I see this is on this at this level on the scale, is at this level on the scale, and you have to realize every person is at some level on every scale. That is an important datum because it's not as if it's not going to apply. It is. It's going to apply. So let's say you have some friend Bill. Your friend Bill is at some level on all 35 scales. And if you wanted to, you could study him, study the scales, and find where he is on every scale. And every time you do, you'd have a realization. Let's say you're looking at the scale of control. Ah, Bill is at level 6 on the scale of control. That's why he's a control freak. He's at level 6. If he were at a higher level, he wouldn't be a control freak. See, because there's only 7 levels of control. So I have done the heavy lifting by getting it down to only 6 levels. So this is not hard to do because you're only selecting from a menu of 7. Did I say 6? I meant 7. You're selecting from a menu of 7. So, you know, you go to In-N-Out Burger. What do they have? 7 things on the menu, you know? There's like hamburger, cheeseburger, French fries, shake, Coke, you know, that's it. It's easy to select. Sometimes you go to a restaurant, they have like 300 things. You're there for an hour. So this is very easy to use because it's natural law. And because it's natural law, it makes sense. Somebody opens this book, doesn't know anything about it, right? Let's say he's in the bookstore, he takes it off the shelf. He opens it, he looks at, let's say, the scale of attack. He says, yeah, this makes sense because the whole thing fits together mathematically. Now, I went out of my way to write the book in such a way that it would not present a problem for people who are allergic to math. There's very little math in the book. But underneath it, you know how like when you have a website, right? You have the front end, and the back end, right? The front end is what you see. The back end is much bigger and was created by engineers. Most people would get completely lost with that. So this has a front end and a back end. The back end, I did all the engineering work on the back end, and I'm giving you the front end. So you could use this anytime you want in any situation, as long as it's about people. And it's not hard to do. You know why? People tell you their levels. Comes right out of their mouths. But it's not just what they say, it's how they stand, how they look at you, what their expressions are like. So you watch somebody and you say, oh, I see, this guy's at this level on the scale. Now you've got that. You understand that component. Now, if you want to go ahead and go to the other 34 scales for that person, you can do that.
Mate, just blown my mind on that. Wow. It does make a lot of sense because when you go and talk to any person, and like when you talk to any person, you wonder what I'm just blown away by that because I've read about I was wondering where the maths came into it, but the maths, it's quite a simple process. You look at something or somebody, and you understand what their level is at whatever, um, whether motivation or whether it be motivation or reaction, all those ones.
Right.
Um,
That's right.
can I ask you now? Because we always do say people who do body language analysis and all those kind of things. I know
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to lie. I look at that too, and also look at energy and feeling as well.
Right.
Where, at what stage do you, when you meet? I guess you meet someone new. I guess I'll call it someone new. At what stage are you looking at them and going, okay, they're at a level whether they sort of connect with you or whether you sort of do the human thing, go, okay, this person might be at this level. I might not be near them. I might not need to be near them, or whether you keep them in your life, or whether you, well, depending on what level you keep them in your life, whether it's on a
Mm-hmm.
level of hello, how are you, or whether it's on a deeper level. So this book will actually tell you where you should go on that scale as well. It's absolutely fascinating, Jim.
Yes.
Yeah, fascinating stuff, mate. It's just blown my mind with the info you just given us.
Let me give you an example. All right, a simple application. Right. That's very quotidian. So let's say you have some girlfriend, you've been going out with her for 3 years and you think about getting married. Wouldn't it make sense to ask, why does this person want to marry me? Isn't that a reasonable question?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not saying ask the person. I'm saying open the book to the scale of motivation. Now you know her because you've been hanging out with her for 3 years.
Wow.
Once you
Okay.
study this, once you study the scale, believe me, this is not hard to get. I went out of my way to make this accessible to people. You study it, see, and I did the hard work of getting it down to the 7 basic motivations that there are. And you can say, wait a minute, there's thousands of motivations. No, those are just subsets of these.
Okay.
So so here's what might happen. So you say, all right, I see what a motive is. She loves me. That's level 1. Best motivation of all, the highest of them all. Let's set the date. Maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe what happens is you say, now that I've thought about this, I think she wants to marry me because I drive a Lamborghini. I have a 60-foot yacht. I fly my own Learjet. I live in a $15 million house, and I have $10 million in the bank. That's a different motivation. That's level 4 money.
Right.
I'm not saying it's good or it's bad, but it's what it is. Okay?
It is what it is.
That's right.
Yep.
Right. Just like this is a tulip and this is a rose.
Yes.
Okay? So now what you do with that is up to you. That has nothing to do with me. So you might think, okay, well, that's not the first time I met a girl who wanted to marry me for my money, but this one is pretty, funny, smart. We get along great. We have a lot of fun together. So I'm going to marry her anyway. And you may live happily ever after. That could happen.
Can I ask you on that one? That
Yeah.
relationships are huge, Jim, and I think you're onto something here. Now, I'm going to go to the next level and ask you: when you find out, say, okay, you got someone to go, hang on a minute, this could be for money. Is it you said what I do with that information is my business, whether I go and see another professional or
That's right.
talk about it. But what you're doing is going, okay, we're looking at this book and going, hang on, I have and it's mainly a feeling, would you say, Jim? Would you say would be that you get to know the person, or you have that first initial feeling and go, okay, other than I always say with people, I don't know if you agree with me, but I always say everyone gets endorphins when they meet someone new. And you got to get rid of that ego and get rid of those and just balance yourself before you make a conscious decision. And when this is where your book comes in, probably after the 3 months, especially relationships, 3 months, get the endorphins, everyone's happy, happy, happy. Then you come back to earth and come back to balance, get your book out and go, where am I at? Would that be a analogy that you'd go with?
Well, first of all, let me say Septemics has absolutely nothing to do with feelings.
Okay.
or intuitions or emotions.
Yep.
Nothing.
Cool. Got that. Yes.
It's just like I'm walking down the street, right? Which is something I do frequently. I go for a walk and I look at somebody's garden. Oh, this guy has a nice garden, you know. He's got a bottle brush tree, he's got a cactus, he's got a lemon tree. That's just what it is. You see? Because I know those things. Okay,
Yes.
I know a lot about botany and planting. I've been in gardening since I was a little boy. So it's just like I could turn on a baseball game and I could say, wow, this guy can really run. And he's not a power hitter, but it doesn't need to be because he makes contact and he can run. See? So that's like because I know baseball. I can analyze it. I can say, yeah, this guy, you want to put him in the front of the lineup because he can get on base and he can run all the way around the bases the next guy hits the ball. So that's
Okay.
analyzing it. See, it's knowing somebody who doesn't know baseball is not going to make that. You know, I
Yes.
had a friend who was an equestrian, and she said to me, "I want to go to a polo match." I said, "Okay." You know, that's how I am with people. I'm just agreeable. So we went to go to this polo match, and you know, they have strings of horses, right? Because you can't just keep using the same horse.
That's right.
So there's a timeout, and you put another horse, right? So one horse comes out on the field, right? And she says, "Oh, that's a terrific horse." I had no idea what the hell she was looking at. To me, it's just another horse. They all look the same to me. You know why? She's an equestrian and I'm not. So she could analyze this. You see, you know about horse trading, a guy can come and look at the horse. I wouldn't be able to buy a horse. I don't know what I'm looking for. Cars, that's another thing. I know all about that. See, I can say, okay, oh, it's got 165 horsepower. Okay, that's enough. What's the cubic? Oh, it's 2.0. That's enough. See? So, like a lot of women, they go to buy a car. They have no clue about that. You know, you ever ask a girlfriend, what's your new car like? It's blue.
Oh, it's red.
Yeah, they don't know. See? So, what this does is it gives you specific, reliable data about human beings, groups and individuals both. And forewarned is forearmed. So, this works two ways. If you meet somebody who is at or near the bottom of several scales, run for your life. When I meet somebody who's like that, I just say, thank you very much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
That's well.
And
That's
the opposite is also true. Sometimes I meet somebody who I say, oh, this person is high in this scale, high in this scale, high in this. This is somebody I want in my life. This is an upscale person. Now, I already know fewer than 1% of humans are at or near the top of all the scales. And something like 4% are at or near the bottom of all the scales. Most of us are high on some and low on others. That is the norm. So you have somebody, right? You have somebody who he's the CEO of a corporation, right? And he's got 160 IQ. He makes a ton of money, you know, he's very smart, but he can't get a date. Girls won't go out with him. So, see, on the scale of human ability in his field, whatever that is, he's high. But on the scale of sexuality, or maybe on the scale of relationships, he's low.
wow.
So
Okay.
that's how most of us are. So let me give you a famous historical example. Okay. I'm not going to give levels, but I'm going to tell you something that we already know. Bill Clinton is a very smart man. Everybody knows that. Even his opponents and his enemies admit that.
Yep.
He was a Rhodes Scholar. You ever listen to him speak?
Yep. Absolutely. He's a very, very smart man.
Highly analytical. He gives you a very cogent answer that's relevant, right? It's not the usual blah, 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 as you get from a lot of politicians, right?
Yep.
However, if I had a sister or a daughter, I would say to them, don't go out with Bill Clinton. Because everybody who's been paying attention for the last 35 years knows that he's a serial abuser of women. This is no secret. Many of them sued him and won. Some of them have gone on video and explained in detail how he raped them. Okay? So that eventually led him to being impeached. So here's what we know. In his area of profession, he's high on the scale of human ability. But in perhaps the scale of sexuality, he's at a lower level, or he wouldn't have made those mistakes.
Mate, this is amazing. It makes so much sense what you're saying. I've never looked at it that way. And you've got the book out there to explain this. And I'm fascinated. I mean, I love human behavior, but not on this. This is next level.
Right.
We're going to go for part 2 with Jim. We're going to have a couple of minute break, get your water, get yourself ready. And man, I'm blown away. That's all I can say, mate. Jim, I'm so glad I met you. Really, I mean, knowledge wise, it's amazing, and your book will be in my possession very, very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to part 2. If you want to contact Jim, the info will be after this episode and also on our next episode. So thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Look forward to speaking to Jim part 2.